glad to see some of our administrators here because you know what? You guys don't even know about this yet. It's like the best kept secret. We have been madly doing some pretty intensive work last year in our SO committee. And one of the dreams, the Marcy dreams, was to have a social emotional curriculum from pre-K all the way up to grade 12. And I'm pretty excited to tell you that we have that. So I want to talk about that and some other things. Are you ready? Tracy, you ready? Okay. Okay, I want to be really clear about these two things, which I think is important. I would share this slide with your staff. The difference between social emotional learning and mental health. So this is a bold statement. I shared this actually with the rural caucus, so a whole bunch of school divisions, and they're like, that is true. And it needs to be said to all of our staff. I really do believe that as a school division and school divisions, not that I think I should be speaking on behalf of all school divisions, we are responsible for social emotional learning and social emotional well-being of our kiddos. Mental health is something that requires specialized expertise, and we can't be responsible for that. Like when we think about it on the foundational side of social emotional learning, that to me is the pillar. We can totally do these things. We will learn and we know how to do this, and we can support each other with it, which is helping our students develop healthy identities and learning how to manage their emotions and achieve goals and show empathy and establish and maintain really healthy relationships and make good decisions. That's all in our wheelhouse. We can do that and support our kids with that. What I think is out of our wheelhouse, where we need external supports, is when it comes to mental health, which is that I have a psychological or an emotional disorder that impedes my ability to do some of those social emotional learning pieces. And we can't diagnose those because we're not psychiatrists and we're not mental health therapists. So when I think about things like anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, mood disorders, bipolar, those are things that we need our mental health experts to help with. And I know they are taxed and I know they are overwhelmed. And yes, we have these students in our building, but what I really hope is that when we move forward, we come up with collaborative plans with mental health, because it's really hard for us to make those plans ourselves. We don't know them. Like even our psychologists, so Adrian, Adrian can do good chunks of this work, but Nicole is not able to assess mental health disorders, right? She does learning and educational disorders. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward, because our goal is about social emotional well-being. It isn't about mental health. So here is our goal, and it has changed over time. So our administrators would have seen the goal, but they wouldn't have seen all of the details around how we're supporting the goal. Many of you guys will not have seen this goal maybe for a while. Before, it used to be that we would just have an awareness of social emotional learning across the division. And what we've really moved from is from awareness to action. Like I think now we really need to start supporting this. If we want our students, and this is the goal, to have the knowledge, skills, and attributes to respond to their social emotional needs, we're going to have to teach them those. And if we want our staff to have the knowledge and the skills to respond to the social emotional needs of their students, we need to be able to support our staff with that. And also they need to be able to do that for themselves and for their colleagues. And that's why we have our staff wellness goal. So there's two pieces there that I always thought was missing, which is how are we going to give our kids the knowledge, skills, and attributes to make sure they can respond to their social emotional needs? And how do we make sure that our staff have the knowledge and skills to help our kids with their social emotional needs? We needed both. And then we need some data points. And this is such a qualitative and, it's such a qualitative piece that it's hard to get data around it. So we do have attendance data that lies in this goal. But now I think we can actually collect some data on our students. And it's not to quantify it, but it's to help us inform our interventions and to inform where we're at with our students. So for our students, we have our SO data K-12, which is our framework. And for our teachers and our staff, We have developed something called the Teacher Confidence and Connection Survey. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about that. We have that for our EAs and for our teachers. Okay, so I call this the mighty Deuce, which is we have now 2 frameworks. One you guys would be very familiar with, which is the social emotional learning framework. There's our 5 domains that we're working on within our framework: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. Those all make up the framework that we use. Remember, those are the big tabloid frames that we would map out our kids on. That's what this framework is. On the right-hand side is our division framework that's supporting all of the work around social emotional well-being across the division. So you'll see at the bottom this foundational knowledge piece, and that's what we're really working hard on this year, which is creating the wellness curriculum for K-9. So we have the curriculum made. Our next steps are going to be on making the actual lessons and resources in that curriculum. We have something called SO 3000. So we made a curriculum for 10 to 12, and then we called in some fabulous teachers to help us with the actual resources around teaching this course. And my goal is that every student in Chinook's Edge would take SO 3000, 3-credit course, and it teaches them all kinds of social emotional well-being knowledge and skills that they will need. So we actually made a Google Classroom, and we see piloting this year in January, and teachers being able to teach that, and we've given them the resources they need for that. And then the other thing we have is the teacher, EA, and leader SO certification. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so big question that we need, and our goal is we've got to have data to inform where we're at with the goal. Every time I go in front of the board, I have Alan Tarnozzi in my head. So when I first got this job, he's like, Marcy, we spend the most money in your portfolio, but we have the least amount of data of where we're at. And I'm like, oh, well, that's because it's very qualitative. I'm like, no, I can't say that to the trustee. I'm like, well, I'm sure there are ways that we can measure where we're at with this goal. We just need to make sure that it's well informed and that we're doing it with good intention. And to me, good intention means that we are collecting data on students to inform interventions, not collecting data on our students to inform social emotional well-being as a goal. There's a big difference to me on that, which means in this whole group right now, everybody online, I don't see us having social emotional data on all of you. What I see is that we might have data on our most complex kids. So like Ian, we're gonna have some data on you. Tracy, definitely, we're going to have some data on you. Like, it'll be our students that we need more data on to inform the interventions. So I really don't see a time when we would have data on every single one of our students. So if your fear is, oh my God, are we going to start like quantifying all of our social emotional data on each of our kids? No, we're not doing that. That's not the purpose of this. So here is our tiered approach. So in Universal, you'll have places where you'll collect data on your students regularly. It might be a wellness check-in. You might have a feelings board in your classroom where you're checking to see where your kids are at. You've got universal strategies that we'll talk about that we've made for our teachers. Now you've got a SO classroom that you might be using some of your 10 high leverage strategies that as a teacher you're going to learn in the SO certification series. And we're also looking at restorative justice and restorative practices. So you might have your restorative mindset there. When you move up, you might have the SO framework that you do on a student. You might use our digital SO tool, which is the framework in a digital form. You might be using our CRM data sheets, which Karen and Jason probably presented to you this morning. And then you might be using restorative language and mediation skills that you get in your SO certification. And then all the way up at the top, you guys might have heard about this. You're like, what is this flourishing stuff that the family school wellness are doing? So at a very specialized level, we might have a flourishing profile on one of our specialized students in family school wellness. We might have a kite plan on one of our students to support what's happening with their behavior and social emotional well-being. And we might be using restorative justice for some of our students rather than suspending and expelling them. So this is the tiered approach we now have for our social emotional well-being. And you can see that this is just in its infancy. We're just learning about some of these things, and we're starting to gain some knowledge and skills in these areas. This would be the plan overall. If you're like, I don't know any of these things right now, Marcy, well, that's because we are only like on the beginning stages of our journey together around it. So here is the framework, right? It started with our framework. And before, we used to do the whole framework on a student. We used to pull out those tabloid pieces of paper, and we'd look at Amy Jesse and we go, okay, let's do self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. Let's map Amy out on all of those domains, all 5 domains. And then at the end of that, I think we all felt overwhelmed. Like, where do we start? Like, where do we even begin with Amy? So what we have learned from working with our neuropsychologist at Alberta Health, which has been super helpful, I think, learning this framework better, he's like, there's actually 2 areas that students develop with regards to social emotional learning. The first area is their individual development. And once they have that as a foundation, then they move and develop their social and group development. So when you're starting to do the framework with one of your students, you actually start in the order of the framework of self-awareness. So we might look at Amy and go at self-awareness and be like, wow, Amy, feelings and emotions. We need some work. She's in grade 9 and she's like at a grade 4 or 5 level. And we would stop there and we would be working on self-awareness, because once you have self-awareness, then you can move into self-management. Once you have self-awareness and self-management, then you can move into your social and group development. So if you're working with your staff, it's really important for you to explain to them how to use the framework so that they're not doing the whole framework on one student. It's you start with the individual pieces first. And if they're at grade level, like they're at their developmental level in self-awareness and self-management, then you move down into social and group and go, okay, like let's look at these 3 areas, and then you decide where the student would be. So the social and group development kind of branches off. It could be the student really struggles with relationship skills, and so I'm going there. Or this student really has problems making responsible decisions, so I'm going there. Or when they're in a social group, they can't do it, so I'm going there. So you see the difference? The individual one builds one on the other. The social and group development branches off into the 3, and you can start at any one of those for your student and make goals. So I just wanted to go over how you would use it. So I always use Kurt. He's like, am I one of those social emotional kids again? Yes, Kurt, you are. And you know what really Kurt is? If Kurt was in our school, he would be one of these kids, right? He would be totally distracted, and we would have to help with focus. In this case, this student has some pretty high anxiety, and this student has also got sporadic attendance. So he's one of our social emotional kids. I did some data on him. So I worked with the teacher and I said, okay, let's look at this student. This is a real student. I've just changed the name. And I've gone in and I'm looking at the framework. So I start with individual development and I start with self-awareness. So here I am with Kurt. He's in grade 4 to 6. So on the framework, I circle where he's at. He's at 4 to 6 in grade level. Now, where is he developmentally? So this is me highlighting the areas that he is struggling with. So like not great with describing personal qualities and actions to make yourself successful in a community or at a school. He struggles with that. But then even if I go into 7 and 9, this is the area where he's at. So in 4 to 6, he's got it. But a stretch goal for him would be to identify personal characteristics and values and analyzing honesty and integrity. So when I look at the first part of self-awareness, this student actually is very strong in this domain. So I'm like, okay, I'm moving to self-management because he's got this. So now here we go. And now I'm in self-awareness in the second part, and we're looking at feelings and emotions, and look where he is. True story. Like, this student is just not able to understand emotions. He can't manage those emotions. So we really needed to do some emotional vocabulary with them. So what I did was I went into self-awareness and I went to the first learning category, which is personal characteristics and behaviors. And he is strong in that area. So then I moved on to the next one. So in the framework, it's all scaffolded. So when you look at the framework, the first bullet builds onto the second bullet that builds onto the third bullet. So if I'm looking at the first bullet and he doesn't have that, I don't need to go to the second or the third. I know he's going to be struggling with them. And you can see with this student that maps out very clearly. He can't recognize emotions, and so then he can't safely express them because he doesn't know what it means to be angry, what it means to be sad. And so then after that, I made just a little social emotional wellness plan for him. Here's your goals. 2 goals that we're going to work on, like 2 stretch goals, and then 1 success goal. So we're working on self-awareness with your feelings and emotions and how you recognize emotions and then how you express them. And then your success goal is, like, let's work on identifying areas of control that you have in your own life, which is basically size of the problem. Right? That means size of the problem. And that fits nicely with the other 2. So once I got this student to understand emotions and to safely express them, then I wanted to be able to regulate when he expresses them, how much he needs to express them, and how he deals with the problem. So I'm going to stop there for a second and see if you guys have any questions around the framework. It seems like that's all good. Yes. Okay. Gonna keep going. So you can see as we moved across, here's what you would see, your self-awareness, and he's weighed in this area, right? In the grade 1 to 3 area, moving down to the pre-K. The same framework is on our CSD digital tool. This tool is what feeds into the CRM data sheets that Jason and Karen talked about. So you use the tool the same way. So you only go to the area that you're looking at, self-awareness first, then self-management, and then to the group areas, and then it feeds into those CRM data sheets that you're looking at for your meetings. So here are some examples of some data points. Like, this is very interesting. So you guys understand how we came to this. Is these are real students that are in a high school. So I went over to meet with the principal and the vice principal, and like, we've made these data sheets, and I'm like, these are lovely. So at that time, they had the reading level, they had MIPI, they had the course grades, and they had attendance. They didn't have any social emotional data. So look at Karen, real student. I just changed her name. Karen's in grade 10. She's good on her reading level. MIPI, she's got a 74. Look at her attendance. She's coming. She's doing great. She loves art. And look at her art marks. She's at 0, 0, and 20. And I'm like, does she not like art? And they're like, no, she loves art. She's not like the teacher? Nope. Teacher and her get along really well. And I'm like, so what would you do with this without any social emotional data? And they're like, that was kind of the struggle, is they didn't know where to start. And I'm like, we need something. And so in order for this to feed into a spreadsheet, I had to make a little bit of a formula for it. But you can see what happens is we took Karen, we put her on the framework. I started with self-awareness. So I worked with the school to walk through that with Karen. So she's in self-awareness. Her developmental level is 2. So she's functioning at a grade 1 to 3 level in self-awareness. And the area that she's struggling with is the second area in self-awareness, which is feelings and emotions. Do you see how that works? I'm going to go to the next one just so you get it. Jason. Jason's in self-management. He's at a level 4, right? So if I go to 4, he's in the 7 to 9 area. And then in the first area is where he could use some support. So if I look on self-management, managing and expressing emotions. Now me, like number 12, I actually got my own data. So this is what my profile looked like in high school. I went back and found my high school marks. And I kind of thought what I would be like on the framework, just to show the difference. So yeah, my reading level would have been grade 6, probably 5, 6. I wouldn't have gotten any higher than that. My MIPI would have been 33. No doubt. If I did, I think I actually did it and got 33. And then my math marks, I went back and looked at my math marks. So here are my math marks: 35 in October. I had a better banner year in November of 40. And then I was back down to 38 in December. So these were my marks when I was in school. But when you look at my social emotional stuff, like, I'm pretty high because I'm an academic kid that needs support. Like, there it is. It's straight out. I got an LD and I need support. And my mother would have made sure I was coming to school every day. So like my attendance would have been something like that. Like if I wasn't getting the 100% attendance record, my mother really was like, really? Like, why? Because remember, I had bronchitis for 3 days. You can still go. We've got penicillin for that, right? So I had really good attendance, but these would have been my marks. And that's why I think it's so important that we have some data on our students that we're struggling with, especially around the social emotional, to support the interventions we're doing. Okay, here's the framework for Flourishing. This is for family school wellness. So family school wellness right now is using this as a guide to get a profile on a student, like you would see here, to inform what they're doing for a plan for them. So we want to be able to have our family school wellness have enough data that they can inform the support they're giving a student and make sure that they're maintaining a proper therapeutic relationship. And when I say a proper therapeutic relationship, it means I really like Ian, and Ian is coming and seeing me as a family school wellness worker. But if I'm seeing Ian for 3 years, we got a problem. I'm not moving forward with Ian's success plan, and I'm damaging my therapeutic relationship with him. Like, I can't maintain that kind of a relationship for 3 years. And so Amber and I were looking for something that would give us data to help our FSWs make really insightful and informed plans to help our kiddos as they move forward. So that's just for you guys to understand and know. The YES program uses that same data to inform their groups. So FSW and YES work closely together. Okay, we have this slide that some of you know, which we call the lady in pink, which means building capacity so we don't have one person in our staff that is dealing with all the social emotional concerns and fires that happen throughout the day. And this is why we started to build this framework. So I want to go through the foundational knowledge that we're doing so you have it and you understand where the division is moving forward. Here are the main components of it. We added data from a teacher confidence and connection survey and an EA confidence and connection survey. It's anonymous. The teachers and the EAs take the survey and it tells me as the associate what are the areas that our staff still need support in. So it isn't that I'm going to go look back and say, Kylie said she wasn't very confident dealing with social emotional kids. I have no idea because it is anonymous. It's just that she's filling it out, and at the end I might go, wow, I have a group of teachers that are really struggling with skills and how to deal with escalation. And so we need more PD around that. The other thing that we did is these 3 things. We made a curriculum for our students. We created a SO certification series for our teachers and EAs, and we built a certification series for our leaders. So that's taking care of our knowledge and skills for both our students and our staff. And then for teacher supports, we made a universal SO checklist for all of the domains, and we're working on teacher strategies with another division in Nevada, and we have kite plans. And whenever we get out of this COVID, we'd like to be able to continue training in MBCI, SIVA, which is another form of MBCI, and Studio 3, which just helps with our most escalated kids. So the pre-K to 9 wellness curriculum, here's how we built it. So we looked at a whole bunch of curriculums across Alberta. There wasn't very many. Canada, not very many. United States had a couple. But I knew that Australia was leading the way, And so I connected with an associate in Victoria in Australia, and she's like, oh yeah, we do a lot across the country with social emotional, and they shared their curriculum with us. So we took all of those plus our framework, and we created our own scope and sequence from pre-K to 12. So this is a sneak peek. This is what you might see. I grabbed an outcome from kindergarten. So here it is. They're going to begin to recognize small and large problems and explain situations in which they need to seek help. We went through every single outcome and figured out what the knowledge is, what cognitive reasoning they need, and what the skill is, what the big idea is, what the essential questions are, and what we're going to assess. And then what I'm going to ask is for teachers to come and join me, just like they did for the high school, and we build the actual lessons that we are doing for each of these and put them in a Google Classroom. And I see this just being connected to our health curriculum. Whenever that new curriculum comes out, this will be part of it for K to 9. For SO 3000, we've gone even further, right? So we took every single one of these outcomes, we unpacked them, we created a lesson, we made all of the resources, and we created all of the assessment tools for it. So literally when our teachers come to pilot this, they have a Google Classroom with everything they need, and then they're going to be coming in and we're going to be supporting them because there are pilots. So they're going to give us some feedback. This worked, this didn't work. The teacher confidence and connection survey, when you guys do your SO certification is when you do the survey. And what it is there's 4 value questions. There's 4 knowledge questions around social emotional needs. There's some skills questions, confidence, and then connection. They are specific questions, and like I said, it's anonymous. So we went through a literature review to get that. So we can just inform where we're at as a division and what supports we need along the way. And then here's the series. So the leaders are learning about becoming, leading a SO within school, becoming a SO instructional leader, and then leading through some really difficult SO situations. Our leaders also are learning restorative training and justice when they're ready. The teachers are learning about a SO supportive classroom, becoming a SO informed teacher, and managing like really complex situations in your class and how you support kite plans. So the big one for the teachers is that I went through and looked at what are the really high leverage social emotional strategies you can use in your classroom. What are those? Like what are the top 10? And those are the things that I'm going to be sharing. Plus, what are some of the other resources as a teacher you can use to make sure your classroom is a SO informed classroom that looks like what you would need to support social emotional well-being for your kids. The EAs, we're starting on Friday, and same thing. What are their top leverage strategies? How do they manage complex situations? What do they do when they get up to peak, and how do they run a team? So that's what they're learning on Friday. The teacher strategies I'm working on with Nevada. So we're still working through that. And then these universal checklists we have made for every grade level. So we have 1 to 6, 7 to 9, and 10 to 12. So if you do your framework and you find out that you've got a class that really struggles with social awareness, these are some very universal, simple things you can put in your class that will support that. So the universal checklist is huge. And then this is our plan, right? We're moving forward with the certification. We're piloting SO 3000 in January, and I'm going to be knocking on doors and asking for help with pre-K to 9 SO lessons. So that is what we've been up to, folks. We've been busy. Any questions? Don't be shy. Like, I thought for sure one of the questions would be like, can I see the curriculum? Like, how do I get access to the curriculum? And how do I get access to the universal checklist? So I'm going to have Mary put a little SO drive together today. I'm going to share it so that you guys can look through both of the curriculums, look at the checklists, and look at the outlines for the SO certification series. So you've got that for your teams. So especially if you're an LST, I could see teachers saying like, what is up with this so series? Like, do I need to be going to that? And I want you to be armed and ready to say, here is what you'll be learning. Like, here's what it's going to look like. It will be worth your time to go. Tracy, got any questions, buddy?
Not yet. It's all good.
Good.
That was Dawn.
Well, yeah, I knew it was Dawn. When all else fails, Tracy, blame it on Dawn.
Totally.
Kylie, what are your thoughts on what you heard?
I think it looks good, Marcy. Until I look at the curriculum and stuff, I don't know. I don't know yet. It looks good. I like the social emotional piece though, and that there'll be lessons for teachers to use.
Yeah, I mean, our plan was to launch that with the new curriculum, but as you know, the new curriculum has its own pathway. So we might just move forward as a division, work on building our own lessons and pilot it in a couple of schools in our health curriculum and move forward that way. I'm not sure. I'm going to let the group that decides to help me build the lessons determine what would be the best way for us to move the work forward. All of the curriculums are still based on those 5 domains, so they align with the framework. So you know how when you would do the framework before on a student, it would be the now what? So you're like, okay, like I just did with Kurt. So at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so now what? Like, how do I actually support this goal? I don't know how to do that. That was where we always got stuck as teachers and as support, as LSTs. You would go through the map and the framework on a student, and then you would finish it and go, okay, so now what do we do? And the curriculum is where you go to get those answers. You're like, okay, we're going to work on these pieces then more intensely with this student. And this is what it looks like. So that was always my hope, is that we would have some strategies and support for that. So it wasn't just sort of lying out there as a document. And I think it's a great document, but if you don't have any support around it, it doesn't get used very often. Because they're like, oh God, not the framework. Because once we do it, I don't know what to do with it after we get everything put together. And it can be daunting. So you just find out that you've got a grade 10 student that's at a pre-K level in self-awareness, and you're freaking out, and then you don't know what to do about it. So this is supposed to be to help us. I'm excited to do the SO certification with you guys. So I'm teaching the leaders and I'm teaching the EAs. So it'll be quality time. Even though we really wanted to do that face-to-face with our EAs, I rejigged it, and I think it's still going to be tons of learning for them, and I hope they like it. So that is what we've been up to in the social emotional wellness world. We've been busy. You have any questions, of course, you know, you can just text me or email me. Be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you, guys. Look at, I finished a bit early, so you have a break. Thank gosh. Okay. Go for it and rest your poor heads. Take care. Good, Mary. I'm like ahead of the schedule.
You are. I'm amazed because that's a huge topic.
Hi, Marcy. I have a quick question.
Yeah, hit me with it, Shelley.
Okay, I actually have 2 questions, and maybe you already answered it and my brain is just full.
Probably not, Shelley.
For the SO 3000, is this for like targeted kids, or are we opening it up to all high school kids? And like it's an option class, or we want everybody to take it?
I want everybody to take it, Shelley. I
Okay.
really do. So,
Yeah,
I mean, what we're doing right now is piloting it in HJ
perfect.
and Hugh Sutherland and Bowdoin, I think is the other one. For
Okay.
sure, those 2. And they're going to sort of help me with where does it fit best? Like, is it part of COM?
Right.
Like, is it alongside COM? Like, it has to be its own standalone because it's pretty big.
Yeah.
I can't think of a student that doesn't need the skills around it, right?
No, for sure. Heather and I were just talking. We were wondering if it's something like we do explorations with our grade 9s. Maybe we look at doing so instead, right? So all of our 9s get it. But anyways, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
And then for the assessment piece, when you're talking about going through that framework, are we talking about just our high flyer, like our kids who need it, or like everyone?
That's the high flyers, right? So it'd be okay, like this one, like ones that need a safety plan, one that you need to make a kite plan for, ones that you're really worried about maybe on a like a social emotional level, like maybe like a suicide or an anxiety level. Those would be the ones that you would put on the framework.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would
be something that we
meet your CRM. So you might come in and be like, okay, I'm with my teachers. We went through this, and here's what we got on the framework for this student.
Okay, so you do it like collectively.
And you're only doing 1 or 2 domains, right? You're either doing the individual ones or you're doing the social. So you're not doing the whole framework.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. That helps
Does that help?
answer my questions. Yeah. Thank you, Marcy.
Yeah, it might be once you and Heather might want to look at the curriculum and then talk to me. You might decide you might want to do some piloting of it in January.
Yeah.
I don't know. And if you do, I'd be more than willing to sit down and let's come up with a plan of what it could look like.
Yeah, I think that might be good. I'll talk to Heather about it and get back to you, but I think I would like that.
Yeah, lovely.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thanks, Shelly. Nice to see you.
You too.
That's a great question, Kyle. It's both. So you can either take that Google Classroom that's teacher directed, or we have one that is more student directed, because I would love it to be available for our career highs. So I'd love it for our career high students to be able to take it, because I think every student should be able to take this. So I hope that answers that question for you. Like, I could see that as being an introductory course for a lot of your career high students. You know how you always have like that option, that starter course, like it might have been learning strategies before, or, you know, reading or something like that. Maybe this is the one that replaces that all of our kids do, and then they get their credits on. What do you think about that?
That's exactly where I was thinking, actually. Intake or something to start the year off if we know something happened last year, and something to that regards. But yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's engaging. We made it super fun. Lots of like really amazing interactive lessons in there for them to do. And I think it also would be a great relationship builder. So you're just meeting these kids coming into intake, and this is a fun class to take. It's not like work, it's fun. There's some really cool things in there where they learn about themselves, and they look at different strategies and decisions that they have to make around some pretty tricky situations. I think they would like it.
Thought I should show my face. Yeah, curious. I'll have to look at it, but for sure. One other question. In something like this, like I know there's certain students that we wouldn't give even calm to right off the get-go because it would maybe trigger. Would there be stuff in here that be triggering?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe watch who we give it to, but give it to lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcy. Marcy.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Marcy.
Hey, Daryl.
Guess who I was just on the phone with, Marcy?
Alberta Health.
Alberta Health.
How'd that go for you?
You know what? It went really well. I'll have to bring you up to speed with it, but it basically, we talked colony and COVID through the whole colony. And I said, what are our options? And he said, well, actually, these are our options. And so
Isn't
he
that
was
an
really,
epidemic when you have two?
yeah, well, the thing is, the challenge that we have is, you know, we had sick kids and they were worse than two, it was all of them. So we sent them all, basically we sent them home, and then they got sent back saying, oh no, these are pre-existing conditions. We're always got a snuffly nose. And so my teachers were really between a rock and a hard place. And I was trying to support them. And at the end of the day, they were teaching sick kids. They were teaching sick kids, and they both got COVID.
And no masks.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually, even then at that point, we were masking up. They were masking. The kids? The kids were not, but the staff was to protect. Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're right. So we did everything to keep them safe. But anyway, what Garth Gosling is his name. Really good guy. It's the first time I've talked to him. He's one of the managers of. He's one of 3 managers in Central Alberta Health. So I got moved up the chain quite high. He said in Drumheller they had a similar kind of an outbreak. And what they did is they contacted in corporation with Chinook's Edge School Division or with their superintendent there. They said, we want to shut this colony down until 10 days has passed, until there's no sick kids or whatever that timeline is, or until we test them all. And so they phoned the colony, AHS phoned the colony and said, we're shutting your school down until one of 3 conditions are met. Either all the kids are no longer sick and they're healthy, then they can come back to school. They've gone to get a COVID test and they've tested, the whole colony's tested negative. Or what was the other condition? Yeah, I think those are basically
Or 10 days, right?
Or 10 days and no sickness still prevalent.
Right.
And so in that particular case, the colony did basically said they'll go get tested, sent them all to get tested. And he goes, thank the good Lord, they all tested negative. But he goes, if they had tested positive, we just basically shut them down for 2 weeks.
So, Daryl, are they communicating that to the colony, or are they asking you to do that?
I believe they communicated it to the colony. I believe they did, but they wanted to make sure that Chinook's Edge we do this in relationship with Chinook's Edge. We would not do this until superintendent says, yes, we're on this. We're with you. Let's do this.
Right.
So that was what they did in the colony world. And he was very knowledgeable about the colony world. He basically said, if one's got it, they've all got it. Like they're communal, right?
Yeah.
It's a colony. So I thought he was one of the better guys that I've spoken to. I've actually had 2 or 3 really good contacts, and my contact yesterday passed me to this guy. So
did you already tell Sean that, or?
I haven't told Sean that yet, but I wanted to make sure you guys were all in the loop. Now, as he did say, he goes, are there sick kids there now? And I said, well, actually, now they're all healthy and back in. So he laughed. He says, of course. He goes, it sounds like the ship has sailed. He said, but moving forward, that is what we will do.
Oh, really? So most of those kids are healthy now. It's just
Sandra told me. She actually sent me a text on Friday morning. I wasn't working Friday morning, but she sent me a text and said, hey, good news, all the kids are in school and they're finally healthy. And then she sent me a text later that day, oh, just so you know, I lost my sense of smell and taste today. I was like, oh, I'm so mad.
Yeah. Well, that's good, I guess, for us to know that.
Yeah. So of course she got her positive test last night.
Brutal.
Yeah. So both staff members out. So anyway, So obviously you were talking to Kyle about the social emotional certification series, and we're looking at CRM. We're trying to. It's like anything in our world. We try to make the data work in our world. The advantage that we have over the traditional schools are, of course, we know all of our students, and we only have 2 teachers, and we work with everybody. So we kind of CRM even when they walk in the door. We're like, here's the plan, here's what we're doing, here's the attendance plan. Even though the pink data looks horrible for us in the attendance area, we do have a plan for them to proceed forward. And we do sit down, like Friday, for example, is going to be a day where we all sit down as a staff and we go through every one of our students and go, how are we doing? Where are we at? What's going on? What's our plan? So that's, that really is the CRM process, and it's just figuring out the data piece and making sure that we upload the data and get the data present, because our students may move into a traditional school and it would be good for that data to go with them. So I think that's the piece where Kyle and I are really talking about and kind of going, how does that get done? Who does that? What's the process for that?
Right.
So I think we're trying to figure it all out and play ball with it like everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Daryl.
Okay. No, thanks, Mars. Appreciate it. You and I, are we going to do an IL meeting at some point?
Yeah, not this Friday, but maybe next Friday. This Friday is so craziness. Mary and I are.
Trust me, it's all good. I know
Mary and I are going to make sure we have 107 EAs online and ready to go.
By the way, I just had one of my colony EAs go, do I have to do this? This is going to be a waste of time. And I said, yeah, you do. And it's never a waste of time because you may not be an EA at a colony forever.
Well, and even in a colony, you're going to have some of this.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, I told her, yes, you have to attend.
Are they doing this one or the one in October?
Jeez, Daryl, a waste of your time.
Yeah, quit wasting my time. Mary, you know better.
I'll try not to be affronted by that, Daryl. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.